Put on your hard hat and buckle up that tool belt. It's time for some heavy-duty conversation about all things Tampa Bay. Welcome to Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. I'm Tommy Whitehead, the CEO and founder of TomCo Solutions, where we're not just construction and financial experts, but passionate advocates for our thriving community here in Tampa, Florida. As a construction pro and proud Tampa Bay resident, I'm excited to shine a spotlight on our region. Whether you're a longtime resident or considering a move to Tampa Bay, get ready to uncover some hidden gems and fascinating insights about our beloved hometown. Sitting with me today at the drafting table is Nicole Travis, the COO and Head of Development and Economic Opportunity for the City of Tampa, and her counterpart, Kayon Henderson, the Director of Housing for the City of Tampa. Today, we'll be diving into a topic we are all passionate about, affordable housing. Listen in as we dive into the rapid development of Tampa Bay with no other than City of Tampa officials themselves. Nicole and Kayon have decades of combined experience as city officials and hold this topic very close to their heart. Welcome, Nicole and Kayon. How are you doing today?
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. This is great. City of Tampa officials to talk about something that I am so passionate about. To have you reach out to the community like this is incredible. And I think that says something about the mission of Mayor Castor's administration, that they really want to connect with the community and they understand that housing is something we have to bring to the forefront of the discussion.
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you. So I'd like to know a little bit about you guys. Nicole, if I could start with you, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're originally from, and what brought you into the Tampa Bay region?
Sure. So I am originally from St. Thomas, the Virgin Islands, born and raised there, and went to school in Virginia and studied to be an architect. I practiced in the private sector for a little bit, and then I went into public sector, where I was an urban designer, and then I went to Lakeland, which we have in common. And I was in Lakeland for 12 years doing redevelopment work, economic development work, and then ultimately I was the deputy city manager before Mayor Castor called me and asked me to join her administration as the head of economic development and opportunity.
And how do you take a call like that? Does it just say, hey, Jane's calling? No?
Well, it was, it's, so it was a message first, right?
Okay.
And it sounds just like when you arrive at the airport, this is Mayor Jane Castor. And so, taking listening to the voicemail and then going to my husband, I was like, listen to this. So it was pretty cool. It's been an experience of a lifetime and an incredible opportunity to work alongside Mayor Castor. She's amazing.
That is incredible. And as Nicole mentioned, I grew up in Lakeland.
Yeah.
So Nicole had come to Lakeland a little after I had probably left and come to the Tampa Bay region. Yep. I probably preceded you over here just a little bit. Yep. It was when we first met and discussed, and I looked at your CV, and I'm like, oh man, we're Lakeland people.
Yeah, that's right. County all the way, Lakeland.
So, and that area is booming as well. We're not going to get into that today, but wow, what a change in venue. So that's incredible. Small world. And Kayon, same question. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a wonderful Tampa Bay resident?
Sure. So I'm actually originally from Jamaica, so also similar. Came from the islands. What brought me to Tampa was USF. I came here for college and
Go Bulls.
Never left. Correct. Go Bulls. Never left. So I came in 2000. I started my career over in St. Pete at a nonprofit doing Section 8 vouchers. Okay. So started affordable housing about 16 years and then came to the city 11 years ago.
Wow. So we went to the University of South Florida at the same time.
Did we?
You remember me?
I don't.
In a sea of 39,000 people at the time. You can't remember me? Okay, fair enough. Wow, I didn't even know that about you.
Either.
So we both had these connections before we met each other over the last year.
6 degrees of separation is what they say, right?
I guess so. Serendipity is a real thing. That is incredible. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your current role today? And we'll start with you, Kayon.
Sure. So as you stated, I'm the director for the housing department at the City of Tampa. Really, I think we try to foster everything and look at everything in a holistic approach, even in my role. So we have programs from homelessness all the way to first-time home buyers. And so my role really is to foster relationships with nonprofits, subrecipients, to make sure that we can get the services and the programs out to the community.
So would you say one of your goals isn't for government to provide everything, but government to support other organizations to make sure the population is taken care of?
Oh, for sure. I think there's a miscommunication that one person can do it all. And so as a community, we certainly have a crisis and need to work together to get that done. So whether it's a for-profit, nonprofit, we're looking to work with those organizations to get those services out.
And I bet that provides a multitude of perspectives because we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different ideas. Growing up in the islands is different than growing up in Florida. That's different than growing up in Virginia. And we all did things a little differently. And so I bet you guys have to sample a little bit from each idea to come up with something that's going to work for Tampa.
Oh, for sure. Realistically, growing up in St. Pete and growing up in Tampa would come with different ideas.
Yeah,
so I think, we certainly like to hear. We sit, as Nicole will probably mention also, we'll sit with different providers, different developers to hear what their ideas are, because sometimes we're working on programs and we've seen things done a certain way, but we're always open to new ideas to make sure that we get to that common goal.
That's amazing. And that's experts asking other experts, realizing you can't know it all.
Correct.
That's great to hear that government is engaging with the public so much. And I've really seen that here in the city of Tampa.
But I would also say that it's a testament to Mayor Castor and the way that she leads in as far as innovation, right? And bringing everyone to the table and saying that there's no one solution to solve this housing crisis that we're in, and that we're not going to assume that as long as we, like you mentioned earlier, decades. But as long as we've been doing this, that even we still don't have the answers, and we're stronger together if we are really open and innovative in our solutions and in our approach. And so that's the way that Mayor Castor has led, and that's how we are solving this housing crisis.
Innovation in Tampa Bay. I love it.
Yeah.
That's why I love this area so much. So Nicole, tell our listeners a little bit more about your current role.
Sure. So as the Administrator of Development and Economic Opportunity, I oversee a lot of the development. So I have a lot of different departments. Housing and Community Development is just one of the many departments. I oversee the Convention Center and tourism. I also oversee all permitting, zoning, land use, planning, historic preservation, and the Community Redevelopment Agency. And the Community Redevelopment Agency has 9 different redevelopment districts, and all of those districts are supported by a staff and team, and that also falls under my purview. I am probably forgetting something, but as the administrator, I am housing and community development, and all those other different departments are in my portfolio.
So you have a lot of free time, is what you're saying.
Twiddling my thumbs. It's all good, right?
So it's interesting that the city of Tampa would merge all those different departments, but they all relate back to housing.
That's right.
The convention center growing brings more and more people to the area, and those people want to move here eventually, and then they have to have a place to live. So it's not 2 separate problems. They're kind of part of one larger problem.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, right? And so even when we talk about zoning and permitting, land use and planning, it's all interconnected with how are we economically growing as a community and not displacing residents, and making sure that we are serving our residents well with safe, quality housing, and to make sure there's enough of it.
That's incredible. You wanted to be an architect, and you're really using an architect's mentality to solve city problems by seeing all these interconnected systems. It's not electrical and plumbing now, though. It's people.
It's people, yeah.
That's an amazing use of a degree or an experience level that you wouldn't think how it would go. Yeah,
most people are surprised that I'm a trained architect. So, but I love it. I think that it's shapes. I look at it through the lens of being an architect, and it shapes how I approach problems. It shapes how I think and try to come up with solutions and be innovative. So that's incredible. And so you were in private service, as you said before, and now you went to the public sector. Yeah. Do you feel like your experience in the private sector, not exclusively in public sector, but in the private sector, do you feel like that helps translate it so you understand public problems a little better? Maybe a different perspective? 100%. So I do believe that having some private sector experience is helpful when you go into government role, just because you understand that time is money and you understand the challenges that the private sector are experiencing, right? And then that helps me shape the conversations that I'm having on the public sector side, in government side. How do we support our private sector partners? Because Kayon mentioned a minute ago, we cannot do this. Government cannot do this alone. It's not just going to take nonprofits. It takes the private sector coming alongside us. And so being able to have that layer of lens, understanding the financing, understanding how they structure agreements, timing, all of those things are important, and we have to consider that on the government side.
And that's one of the things that bar small businesses from interfacing with the government, is certain professionals sometimes don't understand the challenges private vendors have.
Sure.
As a contractor myself, as a private equity manager myself, I understand I have a bottom line, I have families to feed, I have to do this, I don't work, I don't get paid. It's very different challenges than a government role. So it's nice to hear that you're recognizing, hey, this might be what we need to accomplish, but we can be flexible on how we accomplish it to get more work, to get more solutions out of our local vendors.
That's right.
That's wonderful. So, Nicole, tell us, what is your favorite part about living and working in the Tampa Bay area? You've been around here for a little while now, and I doubt you're going to go anywhere, right?
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Tampa's home. And so when I moved to Tampa in probably 2005, it's where I met my husband. My kids are born here, and so I'm not going anywhere. So my favorite part of being in Tampa is the sense of community and the connections I feel at home. This is home for me. And so coming back from Lakeland, it does feel like a homecoming somewhat. And so it's just a sense of community, the diversity of the community and the people and the culture that's here. It's different than any other city that I've lived in. And so it's exciting to be here.
That's incredible. And I do believe the city of Tampa fosters diversity, equity, inclusion better than many other regions. I know that Mayor Castor has really made that a huge part of her platform, and that conventions come here because of that. People visit because of that. People that are out of state. I mean, I've literally heard stories of people saying, it might have been one Mayor Castor story, saying, hey, I think she said something, hey, are you the mayor of Tampa? She's like, well, yes, I am. You did a good job in your city. I'm thinking about moving here. I believe she said that at one of the events I saw her at. But it's true.
It's true, and it's further. It shows up even stronger in the housing plan that we just presented last week Thursday to the City Council. It's a implementation plan of how many millions of dollars? $100 million.
Oh, just $100 million.
Just $100 million,
oh, yeah.
right?
Okay.
Some change. But seriously, it's an implementation plan of over $100 million. But the plan specifically helps our most needed in our community as it relates to housing. It is populations that are disadvantaged. It's the lower level of our AMI, area median income. And so I'll let Kayon talk a little bit about that. But even that plan is intentional investment in people that otherwise would not have received the kind of services for housing. It's the first time in the history of the city. So it's not just for this mayor or the first time with, the last two mayors. No, it's in the history of the city. We've never seen this level of investment in housing and being intentional about the investment of disadvantaged people in our community.
That's amazing. So these disenfranchised individuals, these people that haven't really been recognized, they're not just people that don't contribute anything. Most of these are just normal people, maybe some special circumstances, and they need a little extra help, and they can contribute to society just like all of us do.
Right. And so I think Nicole said it, is looking and being very intentional in how we help those individuals. I think in the past we've created programs, and just like you stated, we create things and just having a different lens and realizing that a different AMI needs a different program. And so looking to leverage the workforce development part. And so those between 80 to 140, seeing what they can contribute, which is a lot different than those who are between 0 to 50% of the area median income, and making sure that we create those programs for those individuals so that they can really access them. And so we're giving everybody that help that they need. That's
great information, and people being seen is important.
Yeah. Oh, for
so
sure.
That gives them hope.
Correct.
That's outstanding.
Hope and a step in the right direction.
That is even better. Kayon, tell us a little bit about your favorite part about living and working here in the Tampa Bay area.
So my favorite part probably would be growth. honestly, in work, and just being able to see how much growth we've had and just being a part of that and the change. Certainly the community, I agree. I go to different conferences and just talking about what we do here in Tampa, and people really can't believe how we work with our nonprofits and our developers. Probably an example would be, I think last year we did a veteran build. The housing department had an individual who was a disabled vet, could not give the sweat equity hours for Habitat. The entire housing department went out and spent 8 hours to give him his sweat equity hours. And so just being able to be part of those kind of community and change, I think, is awesome. And that really just becomes a testimony that we've done it with the housing department. And I think since then, Solid Waste has gone out to help to do another veteran build with Habitat for Humanity. So just being able to create change bigger than just giving a financial contribution and be part of a community that Habitat could realize someone does not have family who can help them to get these hours, but we still want to get that person into an affordable housing.
That is a really incredible story. You're not just there 9 to 5 to sign paperwork and move it along a desk.
Correct.
Your department actually took it upon themselves to get out to a job site and assist a disabled veteran of a disadvantaged community in itself that our country doesn't take care of like they should. Yeah. They gave service and we're not giving back. And your department says, no, we can do something about it. We're going to take a day off. We're going to take the entire department and build a house for them.
Yeah.
That is, I don't hear that happening very often in the local government level.
It's amazing. So the one thing that I would say about local government, right? Like no one that's in local government is in it for the money. Just
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the best paying jobs around. No?
No one's in it for the money. It's everyone that you meet that's in local government. It's a servant driven model. We are of service and we want to make changes in our community. We want to help our community. And everything that we do is in the lens of helping the community and what will make it better in someone's life. How can we make that impact? And so this is what we do. So for the staff to volunteer and go out and put the sweat equity in for someone to have a home, people don't think twice about that. Like they're like, sign me up. What day are we showing up?
Right.
It's a servant level layer of work, and it's what we do. It's who we are. It's in our DNA.
That has to show a certain level of high morale within your ranks. In an organization, in a government, it can be very defeating having to try to appease everybody because you can't. And so to have that constant pressure of trying to make everybody happy but not being able to try to do the best you can with the budget you're allowed and still not being able to do half of what you want to do, and yet you still have the morale that the people want to take time to go out and put this in. That says a lot. A lot of company cultures that do pay higher don't have that level of morale.
Yeah, I don't know that I would say that the morale is high because all the constraints that you just talked about, those are real, right? Like we're talking about real people that have bills at home, that are feeling the pinch with the economy, with interest rates being high, with cost of living and inflation being high. Like that's real because the government does not pay a lot of money. So they're real people, right? And so the morale is affected. But the one thing at the core of all those people is we want to help somebody. So even if morale is not good, they still want to help somebody, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of what they're feeling. And it is a difficult job because everything that you just outlined, it's the pressure of the public and not being able to serve more people, or people are not happy that you're not giving more, but the constraints, the financial constraints of local government where we don't have any more to give. And so those are real pressures because we want to do more, we want to give more, but the reality is our toolbox isn't that filled.
Well, I appreciate your candor on that, and I think that it speaks volumes to the type of people that work and do this, that make those sacrifices so that they can give service back.
It is a sacrifice.
Yeah. So tell me, Nicole, what drives you? Like, what's your favorite part of the day? Gets you out of bed in the morning?
I would say like just solving challenges and I'm a problem solver, so I love that. My favorite part is that no one day is the same. But we just talked about the pressures of the job, and it's not easy, but being able to make a change in someone's life, in the decisions that we make, get to help someone, that's why I show up every day. It's not for the money. It's not because I have a cheerleading squad to cheer me in coming in. It's really about making that change and hoping that I can make a significant impact in this community for the better.
That's incredible. And so, Kayon, the same thing. What drives you?
So I think what drives me also is just being able to make a change in someone's life. I think before my day starts, even in the office, I am looking and canvassing, like, do I see anybody who's homeless? Am I sending someone out there? My kids have almost like gotten it into their heads because my son goes to Rampello. I always have like snacks, water, and juice with me in case I like see someone who's homeless. And so my kids are like constantly like, there's somebody, like, let's go give them something. I'm like, that's not how it works. But if they need something, I have something. But really what drives me is just being able to create change. Like someone who we'll encounter who just doesn't see a way out, and we've helped them to realize that there is hope, and we're here to kind of help them with that change.
That's got to be a rewarding feeling, because many homeless people, it's not because they made the wrong choice. It's just circumstances happened and they didn't realize how they needed to get back.
Right. And I think, our job really isn't to judge the choice that got them there. Really, it's someone who needs help, and us having the resource to help them is beyond amazing on a daily basis.
Look forward, not backwards.
Correct.
That's incredible. So, Kayon, tell me, what is the most exciting construction project or new development you've heard about here in Tampa in recent history?
I don't know, most exciting. I'll tell you most recent.
Okay. All right.
So I think certainly we're proud to have really partnered with Funland, the old drive-in move-in theater that was off Hillsborough. I think that was really a place that we were lucky to have had ARPA funds, which was the American Rescue Plan Act. So we had some extra COVID funds that would really help us to get 354 units right there along that corridor. And so being able to partner and work with them, a lot of times we have projects that come before us and really need like a subsidy of like $300,000 per unit. And so being able to jump in and assist that one developer and get 354 units for about $33,000 per unit was really exciting to get there.
In addition to that, this development will remain 100% affordable for the next 99 years. And that's what the $12 million contribution that Kayon is talking about bought us, that extended life period on that affordable housing development.
So when you guys are about, if I did the math right, you're about 121 years, 125 years old.
Looking fantastic.
Yeah, looking fantastic at 125. You know that there's an affordable housing complex
That's
there.
right.
And then you got to get on the bandwagon and renew it.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Nicole, in your opinion, what makes Tampa an attractive location for new development? You just talked about some affordable housing, but even development in general.
Right. So we just came in from outside. The weather is amazing. I mean, it's a paradise, right? Like people want to be here because of the weather, the vibe, the being close to the shoreline and to the beaches nearby. Like, it is an attractive place to be. Even in the pandemic, when everywhere else was closed and Florida was wide open, people were moving to Tampa because, number one, we're open for business, right? We're a business-driven community. But there's so much to be appreciated about the area. It's so attractive. And so, unfortunately, we're running out of green space to build. And so everything is redevelopment and a little more complicated. But from a development perspective, which you often don't see in other communities, is the collaboration between the different entities and nonprofits and local government. And so it's not just local government that's involved. You have the Economic Development Council, you have the chambers, you have all these different entities that are attracting businesses. You have the commercial brokers, you have site selectors that are coming and selling our community. All of that in a melting pot. We work so well together that is attractive to businesses. That's why people want to come to Tampa, aside from, the gorgeous weather, but how we work with each other. to get projects across the finish line. It's incredible, and it's not seen in other communities like that.
And that's kind of going back to what you said. It's just the open viewpoints, different diversity. That makes the difference.
Oh, it definitely makes the difference. And Nicole didn't touch on it, but we've also been asked just like about best practices that we do here in Tampa and working with developers. So a lot of the programs that we have, and as Nicole stated, I think it's a testimony for like everything that we stand for. She talked about all the different departments that's under her. However, like because they're all under one main hub, I think that also helps with the communication, getting things moved along. When people ask us about, let's say, what we do for affordable housing and how do we work with the permitting department, and so we've done some projects in the past, and we've certainly said let's pilot it. Let's look like, what does it look like if we have a designated person that does permitting? What does it look like if we have it? And so we've kind of figured out what some of those barriers are. We have developers wanting to come from Miami to work in Tampa, really just coming here for that collaboration, because we don't want to say we want affordable housing and then say, but these are the barriers you have to go through. If we're going to work together to get to that common goal, we want to make sure all of us are working towards that. And so communication really is key for us.
And that goes back to listening to private providers say, hey, here are barriers, instead of just saying deal with them.
Correct.
You said, here are the barriers. And then not only that, but you decided we're going to get involved with permitting, and we're going to help you fast track permitting by making your priority because you're helping the city.
Correct.
We're going to help you. You follow all the same rules, but we have a dedicated plan reviewer that targets you first. Mm-hmm. Or even if it's not a dedicated plan reviewer, you have priority over other projects that could take a backseat for a minute because you're trying to help the community.
Right. I mean, we've also had, we've done it now twice where we have developers night, and it's just asking developers, what would incentivize you to do affordable housing? Okay. Let us know ahead of time. So if we're going to do any RFPs, which are requests for proposals, what are we missing? What do we need to make sure we're looking at so that we can get the units that we need online?
That is amazing. And I mean, do other cities doing that right now? I've never heard of that before, where a city jumps in and says, hey, let's solve some problems instead of just making it your problem.
I don't know if other cities are doing it, but I think Nicole said she's a problem solver. So Nicole is very much of the mindset, like, let's try to create that and foster that relationship. And so I think that also goes as a testimony to her as to what she has created and fostered for us to think outside of the box. So I don't know if other cities have done it. I don't want to speak on them, but Nicole could probably speak if she's worked at other ones.
We're going to.
No, that's fine. Given Tampa's growing appeal as a place to live, we've noticed a significant increase in housing prices. How does that impact individuals and family with lower incomes?
So Nicole talked about the housing plan that we did last week in the workshop that we had, and we have seen where it's a combination of the lower incomes. They're unable to find somewhere to rent. The prices have gone up for the monthly rent, the security deposit, so that really puts them at a very big disadvantage and affects what our homeless rate looks like. So we are working really a combination of the city, the Hillsborough County, and Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative to create programs to be very intentional for those individuals who are at the lower income, looking at different programs. But one of the things that we also have to look at is having affordable units. Mm-hmm. And so being able to partner and have 99 years of 354 units, that's certainly something that we want to make sure that we're building more inventory to have. As we also look at new development that's coming online, one of the things that we start to ask developers for, can you set aside some that are between that 0 to 50% area median income? Because we realize that the inventory isn't there, and because the rent prices affects those who are at that AMI, we certainly want to have set aside units for them.
And I imagine property owners, they want their value to increase. But in the same token, to bring business, to keep the service level business, we always talk about the high income jobs we're trying to bring to the area. But for every high income job, there's got to be multiple lower income jobs that are necessary. And that might be utility service. It might be construction. It might be food service. It might be any number of jobs that keep our city running. And so you guys are trying to say, hey, we've got to take care of these individuals if we want to have all this economic growth. We have to take care of both sides. It's not just getting numbers up. It's helping the entire population.
Right. I mean, we have to take care of both sides. I think one of the things that the community sometimes misreads is that City of Tampa employees are equally going through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so we've had individuals who work for the City of Tampa, a police officer might need rental assistance because they're just not getting paid enough, or they're not at the price that they can afford an affordable unit. And so when you start to think about the level of service that we need, a police officer is a safety concern, right? And so we want to make sure that that person has a safe, decent place to call home. And so it's not just the food industry. It's us also saying we have City of Tampa employees who provide a level of service to the community that are also struggling with the same exact things.
And we don't want them living an hour away. I mean, if there's a citywide emergency, I mean, we've had national emergencies before. You want your first responders to live as close to the areas they serve as possible. You don't want to call responders and there's an hour and a half before somebody can get in. You want them in the community. That just makes sense.
Correct.
And it makes our community safer when these first responders are next door neighbors of ours, so that we have first responders spread out through our community in each neighborhood.
So even beyond first responders, you'll think about nurse technicians or care technicians. I might not be using the proper name, but the people that take your blood pressure in the middle of the night at the hospital, they're not making, a salary that allows them to live in nice, safe, quality homes. Like, they're struggling too. And so when you think about all of our service providers, and when you think just service, not just the restaurant and food industry that keeps our economy going, when you talk about our healthcare systems that are struggling, like our hospitals are struggling with employees that they know, because if an employee is struggling with housing issues, that rolls over into their work and their productivity. Are they showing up to work late? Are they tired when they're at the job? All of those things matter. And so we have to consider those things for Tampa to continue to grow. It's not just high-wage jobs, but it's also our care services and our frontline worker services that they need safe, quality housing as well.
Yeah, it's a community-wide problem.
That's
it's
right.
Not, that's an astounding.
It doesn't discriminate.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
What initiatives or programs is the city currently implementing to address affordable housing right now, Nicole?
So one of the programs I think Kayon talked about was assistance for the rental move-in assistance program. And so this program was created under Mayor Castor's administration. And what it does is sometimes people are moving into a new unit, but they could probably afford the new unit, but they don't have necessarily the security deposit or first and last months. And so we assist with that. We also have people that may have been in a unit for a year or two, and the rent has increased so much that they have to go out and look for somewhere else to live. That instability in housing is something that we're trying to deal with this RMAP program. And so what we do is we pay the difference in what they were paying before, that gap, and what that new rent is for a total of 12 months. Of course, this is all income verified, and you have to be qualified for the program. But we would pay that gap to keep someone housing stable so that they're not having to move out again, because there's costs associated with moving and moving out. So the RMAP program is one program. Kayon mentioned down payment assistance for first-time home buyers, and there's been several success stories that have been on the news where we've placed single parents that may have 2 or 3 children that have been renting for a ridiculously long time, and their mortgage payment was less than what they were paying for rent. And so you have opportunities like that through the down payment assistance program. We just also created a program for the eviction prevention program. That's a new one that Kayon can talk a little bit more about that. But these are all programs that are meant to keep people housing stable. Because if they are stable in their homes, as I mentioned before, that productivity and their earned income changes. It changes. It's life-changing for someone, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, how do you hold down a job if you're sleeping out of your car and trying to find a shower?
Correct.
get a hot meal.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't consider that these are employed individuals, that circumstances beyond their control caused the spike in rent or housing, and they did nothing wrong. They're going to work every day. They're contributing. And I think that's one of the misconceptions, is that it's just people that don't work hard enough are the ones that need this help. That is not true.
It's not true. It is not true. I mean, we have not only a police department, I mean, we have service workers at the city, and they have responsible workers that have been on the job, been, good employees for years, decades, and, they're struggling too. And so it's not for a lack of trying or effort. It's just the economy wages have not grown where inflation has gone and where housing prices have gone. And it's just really spun into, it's almost like a perfect storm, right? And we just have people at all levels struggling. It's not because they're lazy. They're showing up to work. And one of the other issues that we have, it's a supply and demand issue that we just talked about Funland. That's 354 units, but they're not built yet, right? And so you have to wait for these units to come online to try to help with that supply and demand.
Got it. Crunch. And I bet that you talked about a lot of programs, both of you have, but I bet the down payment assistance, getting people from rental to ownership, that helps those individuals then start breaking that cycle, hopefully to get the generational wealth up a little bit. And when we talk about generational wealth, we don't mean going from $100,000 to $1 million. We just mean breaking a cycle of decreasing, or trying to give them equity, giving them an asset that they can back. And so can you speak to that a little bit, that it really does, it helps that cycle?
Oh, for sure. It helps the cycle to take someone out of renting to really getting into their first home and building that equity. I think one of the ones that we've seen, it was through our last phase of infill, where we did help someone who was a single mom of 3 kids, and her rent was maybe about $1,300, and seeing her mortgage go down to about $700. I mean, stories like that really is kind of what helps us to push and foster the programs that we're doing. So the down payment assistance program certainly helps to move forward with that generational wealth. The eviction diversion that Nicole mentioned, that's new for us. Realizing that some individuals maybe needed 2 months of to help pay for back rent, because that's what they needed to keep them there. They could pay the rent moving forward on a monthly basis, but they needed help with that 2 months back. And so being able to create and implement something like that to help people remain stably housed is also really key and unique for us. I would also say some of the other initiatives, probably more on the development side, is I think we're proud of the capacity fee waivers, such as wastewater and water, that we've kind of created, looking at expedited permitting being one of those incentives, and saying that if someone's building affordable housing unit, even if it's not with city funds, but they are going to do affordable housing, that we can write a letter to help with that expedited permitting. And so just thinking of different ways to help both individuals and businesses to get to that.
That's incredible. Can you tell our listeners how they can contribute to the effort to increase affordable housing in our community? And that doesn't necessarily just mean writing a check. Are there other initiatives they can support? Is there volunteerism that they can help with? Is there introduction to developers? Is there financing? I mean, this could be, an equity manager that wants to invest and help developers. This could be bringing construction labor. Any thoughts?
So I think it's yes and like all of those things that you talked about. Because again, there's no silver bullet to solving the affordable housing crisis. It's really going to take all of us on a community level to be committed to this cause. And so, yes, it's all the things that you mentioned, but it's also, if you have a landlord that may have a rental property that may be, interested in renting the property, like we have home or renters that have been long-term tenants for somewhere, and they're looking for someplace that's larger, someplace that's smaller, life circumstances, but they're good renters. We're not talking about people that have been evicted. So it's really like breaking down the stigma of what affordable housing is, and breaking down the stigma of who these renters are. We have young professional people that don't really want to be tied and committed to a mortgage, that are renting, that want to rent. So I think all of the things that you talked about, if there's interest in talking about financing, if there's interest or you may own property, we talk to everybody. We talk to the nonprofits. If you're on a board or considering getting on a nonprofit board, understanding that housing does impact and should be one of the things that organization should be focused on in some capacity, in some way. It might not be the overall mission, but recognize like this is a true need. So it really takes all the different conversations to be able to solve this crisis together, and being willing to pull up a chair to the table and say, let's talk about it. A lot of times, like, their table is already set and there are people that are sitting there. For me, I'm going to pull up a folding chair if there's not a seat for me at the table. Like, let's talk about it, right? And so it's going to take everyone. And so not for a second should anyone think that I don't have a role or there's nothing I can do. You can volunteer. You can volunteer with Habitat for Humanity or any of these other organizations that may need hands. Paint Your Heart Out Tampa is coming up in April. I know that not because I sit on the board, but my husband has volunteered and led teams for the last 12 or 13 years now. And so these are all ways that we can help. And it talks about quality, safe housing for everyone.
So I love that. Everybody can help. Yeah. Everybody has something to contribute. That's right. It doesn't have to be 20 hours a time. It doesn't have to be $1 million check. Small, incremental methods to help. And I'm sure the City of Tampa is open to listening to these individuals. If you have the help, they can contact the housing department. They can contact the city.
Or even just making a connection, connecting you and I, that's an opportunity for us, because out of that relationship and that connection, something can be birthed and something can be born that helps our community at time.
And I talk about networking and connectivity all the time, especially in the trades. They don't see the value of networking. They're too busy trying to get a project over the finish line. And I understand that. But the connectivity, it's not always about you and I necessarily doing work together.
Right.
Our connectivity might not generate a project for 10 years. It may never generate a project. It may be one next month. We don't know. But I could connect you with my network to somebody else that wants to move today.
That's right.
And vis-a-vis, I can connect you with somebody. It could be, it could work both ways. And so it doesn't hurt to make that introduction, to say, hello, here's what I heard. Not sure if that's a good connection for you. Or ask, Nicole, is this a good connection for you?
Right.
Do you need to talk to a plumber in Lakeland? Maybe not. Do you need to talk to a developer that needs to put some cash into a community tomorrow? Yes, right now. We'll go. Get my folding chair.
That's right. You like that?
So this city has been growing rapidly. How do you see the future of Tampa changing over the next few years?
I think it's tough, right? Like, I think it's going to continue changing in a lot of large development. The housing plan that we did last week, I think I see change in creating or bringing that folding chair, like Nicole said, to different places to make sure that affordable housing does have a seat there. And so while I think it's going to continue to change and large developments will come online, we certainly need to be intentional now in making sure that we are looking at that change to include all area median income, all AMI levels, or the housing crisis will continue to get worse. I think we're at a place where we all need to sit and think about what that looks like for the future. It's not just for the affordable housing itself, but the economic growth that will happen and how that will also impact the community if we don't have the level of service workers to be able to be there for that growth.
So the $1 million condo looks pretty in a picture. Correct. But for the $1 million condo, you're going to need multiple affordable units. You're going to need multiple people for the service, from healthcare to first responders to retail. You're going to need it all. And that's a great point. And Nicole, what about you? How do you see the Tampa Bay area flowing? Like, what do you see coming up in the next few years?
So I think I mentioned it earlier, right? That it's not going to be easy development from a development perspective. It's not going to be greenfield development where we just can build it easy.
Scrape a lot,
and just
clean.
go up and it's clean. It's going to be complicated, right? There's going to be some demo involved. There's going to be upgrading of utilities, infrastructure, and it's redevelopment at this point. Like, the city doesn't have a lot of greenfield development left. And so you're going to see larger, more complicated projects coming along. but it's all exciting, right? And so from a development perspective, just setting expectations, like you're not just going to scrape the lot and start, right? Like there's going to be a lot of work done on the forefront for any development that's coming in. But it's an exciting time and place to be for it to have that. It's a great problem. Like many cities will kill to have that kind of, problem. But, we're here. We're open for business and we're ready to take on the challenges.
That's incredible. And I love the idea of sustainable construction,
yes.
taking buildings down to shell and repurposing them. We've all seen the economic forecast that commercial real estate is taking a decrease because many of the people that went home aren't coming back to work for COVID. It's all remote access now for much of the population. We see buildings downtown sitting half empty. I have people in high-end tax firms that I talk to, friends of mine, and they're like, there are 2 people on our entire floor of this building. They're not joking. It's just like there's 2 people in our entire office. It's like, why do we have this much space? It could be better used. What would you guys do with another 50, 100 units downtown? Yep. Use them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Nicole, let's say I'm someone who's aspiring to be in a position like yours. What are a few tips that you might give them if they're just starting out?
Sure. So first off, don't be a wallflower. Like don't sit along the wall of the room and not add to the conversation. Like you have something to add to the conversation. Pull up that folding chair to the table, contribute. Don't be shy about, getting involved or asserting yourself and giving suggestions. And I'm a firm believer that you don't look for opportunities. Opportunities find you. When you are a hard worker, it's nose down. People recognize that you are a person that produces and does good work, right? And so you might be looking and seeking opportunity and getting frustrated because a position may not be open for you, or you're looking for professional growth somewhere and it may not be there. That you create opportunities for yourself. So don't get discouraged by that. And the third thing would be to have the confidence to know that your worth matters and is needed.
That's incredible. And a lot of people just see success online now. They'll look at my social media and they're like, oh, look at all the cool stuff you've done and what you were at. And that doesn't show all the hard stuff that I've been through, all the times I have failed to get to where I'm at today.
The sleepless nights, the early mornings. I mean, so, just getting started early. I'm up at like 4 something in the morning. I am thinking about the day. I'm thinking about what's to come tomorrow. What can I do to improve? Even in the position that I'm in now, I'm like at the top. Like there's really no higher position for me to go from here at the city. But I'm not looking at that as oh my gosh, I've hit a ceiling. No, like what are the opportunities are there? What else can I be doing to make myself better, to make myself a bigger contributor to the economy and to the community? And so you just try to be open to evolving. Don't think that you have it figured out, and be willing to listen.
That's incredible. And Kayon, do you have anything to add? So a tip to give somebody that might want to be in your position?
I think initiative for sure is one I would say, is taking that initiative. If you see something that needs to be changed, just kind of creating that change where it should be. I think Nicole said it, look, we're not here for the money. And so being a public servant and realizing that the initiative comes more from just what's on paper and just 9 to 5 and making sure that you're still getting to that goal regardless. Impartiality for sure, realizing that once we're in this role, always striving to be better, but looking at it from different lenses and realizing that your lens is not the only lens to get to that final solution. And open communication, I think, Nicole just touched on it, being ready to talk and listen.
That's great. And I preach those all the time. You got to take initiative. Don't just sit around thinking something's going to come to you.
It fall in your lap, right?
Yeah, it won't. And don't think it's everybody else's problem.
Correct.
Because you can make everything somebody else's problem and nothing will get done. And then you will become somebody else's problem and nothing will get solved. You'll never gain anything if you don't push yourself forward. As I mentioned earlier, I love the community here in Tampa Bay. I came from Lakeland a long time ago. I'm a native Floridian. My family are all native Floridians. And I'm a huge advocate for growing your network. What is some advice you have for building relationships or networking here in the region?
So relationships matter in all of this, right? And so I think I would always say I'm an introvert at heart. I am Nicole, introvert. I get my energy for being alone by myself. But I also learned early in my career that if I wanted something to happen, I didn't have all the tools in my toolbox. I needed to network. I needed to talk to people. I needed to open up and tell them, here's the vision that I have. Here's what I'm hoping to achieve. Do you know someone? Can you connect someone? And I learned early in my career the value of networking. It's not necessarily that you're necessarily looking for the next job or the next gig. It's really about connections with people, relationships. And some of those relationships are paying dividends 10, 15 years later after we've made that connection. And so it's a big part of, I think, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as someone that's wanting to do business in the community, it is at the core of who we are, number one, in Tampa. Like, you need to have connections, and like, you got to have your tribe, like your people, right? Like your circle. That's what's going to get you to the next step.
And I imagine without connections you had made over your career, you would never have gotten that life-changing phone call of, hey, this is Mayor Jane Castor.
That is the truth. This is Mayor Jane Castor.
You're spot on, by the way. Does she know that you do this great impersonation?
No, I'll see her this afternoon, so I might do it for her. But it's hilarious.
Maybe the next podcast, when we get her to come on, we'll have you two have a Jane off.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. She is awesome. And the thing, I'll just say this about the mayor. She is a hoot. She is funny, and she's one of the funniest people. Like, she has this dry sense of humor. So if you're sitting at the table and we're in a meeting and she'll just say something and I sit close to her, she'll say something and I'll just start cracking up and I can't stop laughing, and I'm in a meeting trying to be professional. And the mayor's stoic. Like, she is good. No one knows that she's
very stoic.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I went up to her once and I said, okay, Mayor Castor, I have a question about when you were in the police department. She says, yeah, what is it? And I said, I have a teenager, and I'd like to know what the maximum safe setting on a stun gun is. And she says, I don't even remember what she said, but she was just so stoic in her response. She laughed. She's like, as an armed police officer, one of the scariest things I ever did was working at a middle school.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Kayon, do you have any resources or tools you might recommend for aspiring entrepreneurs or business professionals here in Tampa?
Just to touch on what Nicole just said, relationships matter, right? And so the city, the county, local government on a whole, they have committees. So they have affordable housing advisory committees where those relationships can really be fostered. And so some of those resources are going to those meetings and understand what the community is, what the plan is for that community, and how you can really plug and play. And so I think if I would say anything to anybody who's really aspiring, especially in this field, is to know exactly what that community's plan is and showing up at those meetings to really hear about all the resources that they can get.
Just listen.
Listen. Get it all in, soak it in, listen, and really trying to be a part of the change.
That's incredible. Nicole, can you tell me maybe what one of the craziest stories you've ever heard of in your occupation? Maybe it's past in the architecture because you have some construction experience yourself, or even government stories. Tell us something that's like a crazy story.
True story.
Okay.
In Lakeland, it was the first day of work for 2 new employees, and I was director of the Community Redevelopment Agency at the time, and I thought, I was like, this is fantastic. I have 2 employees starting on the same day. I'm going to take them out for a tour of the redevelopment district, and where we're about to do like $15 million worth of investment in this couple radius block. And on the first day, I'm driving down the street, and I was like, okay, we own 2 houses here. We're going to, sell the lots. Well, I get to the street, and there's a SWAT car and like 6 dudes sitting on the curb. And I'm like, okay, it's really not like this all the time, right? And then so I was like, it's really not like this all the time. And they're kind of quiet in the car, and they're like, okay. And I was like, promise. I was like, but we'll go down another street, and it's fine. I'll show you some development, just across Massachusetts Avenue. Get to the other side of Massachusetts Avenue. There's a crowd of people, and this guy overdosed on what is it called, K8, like the synthetic marijuana, and he's like spazzing out on the curb, and I'm calling 911, and these two guys, it's the first day of work, and I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to show up, and they're not going to come back. But I was like, but redevelopment is what we do, and we take blighted communities and turn them into thriving economies. It was like, I went home and I told my husband, I was like, oh my God, these people will never show up at work. I was like, but this is what we do in government. We show up. And it's amazing. Both of them are still city employees. One is still employed in Lakeland, and the other one is my deputy administrator, Elise Drumgo, who is my right-hand person with me at the City of Tampa now. And so I really, that was horrible. Like, it was a worst first impression. But I was like, but believe in government. I'm not going to pay you a lot, but we're in this thing. And it was just like, it was the worst. And, oh my gosh, it was so embarrassing. So yeah, true story.
Well, at least you had those talking points down.
I know. I was like, but trust me, it's not like this all the time. But we turned it into like that part of Massachusetts Avenue now, if you go in Lakeland, has Mass Market, House 820. That's all the work that we did. And it is a thriving part of an entrance to Lakeland's downtown.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Kayon, do you have a funny joke or funny story to tell us?
So, luckily, it was just me. I didn't have to try to convince anyone to stay. It was probably, I had been on the job here at the city, maybe like 2 months in. I was in the city car, and it was, what's that? Like where the Burger King is now, trying to go on like 275 or I-4, like that little corridor. And there was a homeless gentleman who sat there, like right by the Bill's Bondman. He used to sell like water. And I'll never forget, he was eating Popeye's chicken, and he threw his chicken bones at the car. And I made it my mission to house him because I was like, he was angry. He had been homeless for 26 years.
Wow.
Unfortunately, he's since passed, but we were able to house him. So his last like 6 years, he was off the street. So that was probably like my funny, and loved it at the end that like I was able to convince him to take help from the city. But he was against the city, the housing department, because he was homeless for 26 years. It just felt like his chicken bone is what he wanted to throw at us.
And that's why you get up every morning.
That's why I get up every morning.
To get chicken bones
thrown at you.
That's the change.
Well, Nicole, Kayon, it's been a pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much. Can you tell our listeners the best way to get in contact with your departments?
Sure. So if you want to I have many departments, but if you want to get in contact with me, it's Nicole, Nicole.Travis, Travis, at tampagov.net.
What about you, Kayon?
And so for me, just reaching out to the housing department, especially if you need some assistance, I would say our housing hotline, which is 813-307-5555. But if you want to get in touch with me directly, it's kayon.henderson@tampagov.net.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for a job well done, Nicole and Kayon. Thank you so much for joining us in Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. If you have any questions about my company, TomCo Solutions, the construction industry, or real estate investing in Tampa, please be in touch or visit us at TomCoSolutions.com. My contact information is in the episode description, and I'll put Nicole's and Kayon's there as well. We'd love to hear from you. Till next time, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you at the construction site for the next episode of Tommy's Toolbox, the podcast. Have a great day, everyone. Hi, everybody. Tommy Whitehead here. Have you heard about my book, Building Success, A Toolbox to Coming Out on Top? It's already been on the Amazon best-selling list. So scan that QR code on your screen or go to Amazon or any major retailer to get your copy today. I can't wait to hear what you think. So leave a comment below or leave a review with your thoughts.